The last part you really should be messing with is Northern Ireland because of their recent history.
Are probably suffering from PTSD as a nation as a result of living daily through 25 years. And
can you see the violence escalating? We've seen a little bit of it in Ballymena, but we've seen it in English cities as well over the stabbings last year. My fear is if you're going to mess with any part of the United Kingdom, the last part you really should be messing with is Northern Ireland because of their recent history. Is that me fear mongering? Is that me really not understanding the people of Northern Ireland? Or is there a scintilla of truth there?
no, I was talking to a good friend of mine. His name is Mark Anthony, and he and I talked recently on my channel, and we were talking just as two guys who grew up during the Troubles. I suppose you would say from opposite sides of the fence, but we're very, very good friends, and I love the guy to bits. I've had him on many, many times, and we see completely eye to eye with every issue that's affecting Ireland societally at this point in time. And he made a great comment. He said, the people of Northern Ireland or Ulster or the north of Ireland, call it what you will, depending on who you are listening to this, but we are probably suffering from PTSD as a nation as a result of living daily through 25 years. And for those that don't know what was happening here, bombings of civilians, bombings of the army, shootings of police, the army shooting civilians, people killing each other, paramilitary organizations running areas. This happened on a daily basis. And every year, a marching season would come where there would be heightened tensions that could result in all hell breaking loose on a grand scale. But that was the people of the areas coming against each other. I don't think that will happen again anytime soon, the way it did back in the Troubles. But what I can see happening is, and what I have seen happening is, people coming together as communities, mixed communities, irrespective of their own personal faith, and saying, the problem we have in our area now, for example, the thing that triggered off in Ballymena, there's been a huge demographical shift over the last 10 to 20 years there, with people being brought in from outside of the UK and Ireland, particularly in the case of Ballymena, the Roma Gypsy community or the Roma community. They've been involved recently in attacks on young girls, and the locals in those areas would have dealt with their own people by putting them out of an area or burning them out of a house or possibly shooting them, mob justice. So the same kind of principles being applied. Well, if we did that to our own criminals back in the day, self-policing in certain areas, we're surely not going to let it happen with a gang coming in from another country. So that's really what triggered Ballymena off, and then it spread to Portadown, which is also being highly affected by a change in demographics, and Larne and other areas that are being really affected by people looking around going, I don't recognize my town anymore. I don't recognize my city anymore. We can't let this happen. That's the mindset. And then we saw the flare up in the violence because nothing was being done about it. Not condoning violence and not advocating violence. Don't want to see it ever happening again, but you can understand people's frustrations and tensions build up, and then you have a flashpoint situation, and then who knows where it goes from there.
That makes perfect sense. Once you mentioned post-traumatic stress disorder, this is exactly what happened to Germany after the Second World War. They realized the atrocities they committed, the things they did, what the Nazis did, and the German people went, we can never do that again. We need to always be on our guard that we're never going to turn to violence, turn to atrocities again. And I think you're right. I think that's the people of Northern Ireland for decades now have been going, we never want to go back to those days. So therefore, we need to be more tolerant. We need to be more compassionate. We need to ignore things that are annoying us because we don't want to address them because we're fearful of going back to violence. That makes perfect sense. I'd not thought of that. And who was the guy who came up with this you were speaking to?
His name is Mark Anthony. I suppose you would say he's just a commentator, somebody that I've known for years. I used to have him on as a guest when I was on TNT as well, and just somebody I became friends with. I went down and visited him actually in his home last week. We had a fantastic afternoon together, just mulling over what's happening and the way things are going over a cup of coffee. So he's somebody I would classify as a good friend now. But he coined that phrase, and when he said it, it really resonated with me. And when you're going through a lot of stress and trauma, you said you become almost desensitized to it. Well, I think that's what happened with us. If you were to turn on the radio today in Manchester or the Manchester area, or every other day there was a bomb going off, okay, that would be shocking initially. But if you were getting that every day for years and years and years and years and years, it's like it's almost expected. You become conditioned that that's life. And then when it stops, you're almost looking around for where the trouble is. But now people can start to see the building of tensions again. It's almost triggering those that did go through the troubles, and they're thinking, God, I don't want to go back to those days again. We can't let this happen. We must take decisive action. So it's very complicated up here in many, many ways.